Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about something very important, especially important to all of you who are business owners. We're going to talk about how business owners are not making enough money. I know, you're probably like, I make plenty of money, but what if you could make more than you are today, but you didn't have to work any harder? You didn't have to work any longer, and you didn't have to take on any risk. What if your money could just work for you doing the things you do already? Operating your business, buying goods and services, buying equipment. All you need to do, folks, is change one thing and add one step, and your money could work for you 24/7. Wouldn't that be a really interesting thing to learn about? And that is exactly what we want to talk about. I'm joined here with Christy Van from Vantastic, and we're also going to layer in a little bit of velocity banking, because you know what? In business, I know how it works. I've been running businesses since 16, and Christy has taught me a lot about velocity banking, but we're going to then show you how velocity banking, along with infinite banking, combined can really change the entire trajectory of your business growth. So let's dive in. Welcome back, Christy. How's everything on your end?
Super great, and I'm excited to be with you today.
I'm really excited to have you, and I can't wait to bring velocity banking into business uses.
Yeah, and I do get that question a lot, so this is going to be a very interesting video.
Awesome. Let's dive in. All right, folks. So what I want to really do is I want to show you how you can make money twice on the same dollars, doing exactly what you do today. But I want to make this more about business owners. Now, I know a lot of you own businesses, or maybe some of you are in the process of getting a business started, or maybe it's just an idea on a piece of paper that you talk about all the time. What I want to do is show you a way where doing all the things you would already do, owning your business, operating your business, your money can work for you twice as hard as it is today. In other words, for every single dollar you make and every dollar you deposit, what if that money could work for you a second time? While you're out there running your business, going out there, working with your clients, working with your customers, making money, your money is also silently working for you, making money a second time. Well, the way to do this is by using a process, a very simple and easy to use process that literally involves you changing one thing. And that one thing is where your money goes first. Now, what money am I talking about? I'm not talking about the money that goes into your business checking account, or we could even say your personal checking account for some of you. It's that money is used to pay your bills. But what I want to do is I want to talk about the money that you save, the money that you keep in a savings account, a high yield savings, maybe a CD, a money market. That money you're trying to keep for a rainy day, for a war chest, a reserve account. That's the money we want to talk about. And we're going to have that money be redirected to a different place. You see, we don't need the banks to hold your money. And let me show you something here really quick. I want to show you why it's important that you understand that taking back control of your money can really change the dynamics. Because if you keep giving control up to the bank, like I'm showing you here, which is simple, this is what we're taught to do in business or personal life. We make money. We take the money we make, and in this example, I'm using a $100,000 deposit, and we put it into a bank. Now, let's pretend you found yourself a really good bank that pays you 4% interest. You'd be pretty excited about that, especially as the Fed keeps dropping interest rates. 4% is a really good interest rate today. Now, what happens? When you put that money in the bank, that money has to stay in the bank in order for you to earn the 4%, right? So it's idle money. But it's okay because it's money for a rainy day, it's money for a future acquisition, it's money for taxes that you got to pay quarterly. It's money that is for someday, not today. Now, here's the thing. While your money's sitting there, the bank, who you gave control of your money up to, takes your money that you deposited and makes your money immediately go to work for them. They lend that money out. You know this happens because you've been on the other side of this too. You've borrowed money for a house in the form of a mortgage. Christy talks about paying your mortgages off all the time because, well, the banks have figured out how to maximize the amount of money they make on your mortgage. But we're not going to get into that right this second. I just want you to understand that the bank takes your money, lends it out on mortgages, lends it out on car loans, to which you might even have one, home remodel loans, debt consolidation loans. Let's go through the numbers, because this is really about the mathematics. Because when you take back control of your money, you're going to do exactly what a bank is going to do right here. But you're going to do it because you're going to take back the banking functions in your life. And in your business life. So right here, let's just look at the math. If you were earning 4 and the bank lent that money out to somebody to buy a commercial property or maybe a mortgage on their own primary residence that they're buying, the bank would charge right now about 7%. They're paying you 4. They're using your money to work for them to make 7. So you can see they're making a nice arbitrage, a nice little spread. But see, they've trained us so well because here's how it works. That mortgage gets issued, that seller of the house closes, and they give the keys to the borrower, and then the money goes to the seller. The seller does what with that money? They don't bury it in the backyard. They don't put it under their mattress anymore. They take the money and they put it back in the bank. The bank gets excited because now they've got money that they can lend out again. They lend it out on somebody buying this nice car right here, and they charge 8%. Remember, you're getting 4. The bank is using your money to work at the rate of 8, making a nice spread of 4%. The car dealership gets the money for that car when the loan is issued, and then they deposit it back in the bank. The bank does the exact same thing. You see, banks are experts at taking your money, or all of our money, our deposits, which are liabilities to the bank, and the bank takes it and turns it into an asset. The loan to the bank is an asset. It's a liability when they don't lend it out. So the banks don't just leave the money sit there, but you do, because that's what we've been taught to do. Take our money, put it in the bank, put it in 401ks, leave it sit, so that someone else, in this case the bank, can then take our money and work that money and make that money continue working for them. Here we are, I'm showing you this. They lend it back out on a home remodel loan. A lot of you have heard of home equity lines of credit. Christy talks about these all the time. They're great vehicles. And a lot of people will take a home equity line of credit. They'll use it to remodel their house, maybe a new kitchen, a new bathroom. Well, the bank charges probably somewhere around 9%, give or take a percent or two here, but they're going to charge 9% because in some mortgages, not first lien HELOCs, but normal HELOCs, it's a second position because you've got a mortgage in first. So the HELOC is second position. Again, not trying to get into semantics, but they charge a higher interest rate because it's higher risk. The contractors get paid the money and they do what they've been taught, put it back in the bank. The bank then lends that money out to someone who's in debt, who needs to get rid of their debt, someone who hasn't met Christy Van, someone who hasn't used the vault software and the debt blaster to get rid of their debt. This is just somebody that's like, I need to get out of debt. Bank, can you help me? And the bank says, well, that depends, but if you qualify, we will give you a debt consolidation loan. And that debt consolidation loan takes the person who deposited the money at 4% and lends it back out at right around 12%. Why 12? Because this is the highest risk. There's no collateral in this. It's a debt consolidation loan. So the debt consolidation loan is issued by the bank. It pays off the credit cards. The credit card companies take the money and put it back in the bank. So all we did here, folks, is we started with you, me, and everybody else depositing money in this bank. We'll call it a really good bank, paying us 4%. And then the bank takes over because they're in control of our money. And they lend that money out. And they lend that money out at an interest rate higher than what they pay us to have our money sit there. But let's just do the math here real quick. Let's look at the spreads. Well, 4 to 7% right here means that they made 3% spread. When they lent it out on that car loan, it was 4 minus the 8%. So that was a 4% spread. The home remodel loan, a 5% spread. And then the debt consolidation loan, they made a whopping 8% spread. All because they convinced us that it'd be a good idea for us to take our hard-earned dollars, the dollars that we traded our time for, and give up control to the bank so the bank can manage our money. The bank can make our money work for them and make the majority of the money. How much did they make here? Well, add them all up. The bank made 20, we made 4. The bank made 20, we made 4. So take the 4 we make, divide it into the 20 that the bank made, and let's also make note that the bank didn't take on a lot of risk to do this because they used our money. But in doing that, 4 divided into 20 is 500%, which means if we go to this website, bauerfinancial.com, and we look at any bank, anywhere, any time frame, you will find that banks make 400 to 1,300% more than we do on the money that we leave there. So what I'm here today to do is I am here today to simply show you how you can take that same function, everything that we just watched the bank do, but turn it around so that now you are the bank. You become your own banker by changing where the money goes first and by adding the same process I just showed you, but you're going to add that to everyday life and to your business. So real quick, I want to divert back over here to this slide. And all this is just showing you how money works. It's simple. We make income for ourselves or for our business. Okay, we take some of that money, we put it into some form of savings account, and we then show it as cash flow. Okay, that is our cash flow in our business. Normally, we would take this cash flow and we would deposit this into our bank account. And if you are like me, in your bank, you have multiple accounts for your business. Christy, do you have multiple accounts for your business?
Yes.
Some of those accounts, when you do that for your business, do you look for a higher interest rate on that money just so that that money can earn while it sits there at the bank?
No.
Okay, so we got to talk to Christy about that, but some people do. They go out and they look for a bank with a higher interest rate. Now, here's what I will preface. The average bank account in this country right now, even savings accounts included, is 0.07% interest. That's hardly enough, but that's what they're paying. Remember, in that example we just went through, I showed you 4%, but this is the average. So whatever money you keep in the bank, let's just call it $10,000. That money's sitting in the bank. And what is that money for? Well, it's to buy stuff. It's the finance, it's to pay finance charges and loan payments and all these things. That's how it works, right? So let's just kind of go through this. We got money that comes in from cash flow, income, savings, and that money leaves our lives, leaves our bank to go over here in a business sense and pay for the things we need for business. Now I'm just using examples, but let's just assume down here, our business needs a new computer because computers, by all intents and purposes, they only last a couple of years. And then they get slow, they stop working, and there's always a new one coming out. So how do we normally buy computers? Well, it's one of two ways. We either pay cash for them or we finance them. But the computer companies, picking on Apple here, typically will offer you a loan at 0%. Now, how many of you have one of those 0% loans on a computer? I bet you a lot of you do, right? I get it. Why wouldn't you? But that results in cash flow leaving your family and leaving your business forever. Let's just say you bought an iMac or a Mac computer. Let's call it $300 a month. Now, Apple charges you nothing, but that's a 5-year note. So for 5 years, for that computer, $300 is leaving your business. So right here, let's just write this down. $300 is going out every single month to pay for the computer. And you need that computer to run your company. I get it. But you also needed a building or you had to add on. So some folks in their business, they have to finance the building. So let's just say there's a mortgage, or you could call this rent. Some of you rent in business, whatever, it's $3,000. The mortgage is 6%. You have a mortgage and a note, and that's a 30-year note. So now over here, let's just write $3,000 every month is leaving your bank account and going over here to pay for that mortgage. Okay. Some businesses need equipment. So I just drew a piece of equipment here. Okay. That equipment normally is financed. And a lot of times it's leased, but there's always an interest rate associated. I work with a lot of businesses, as does Christy, and I know many of you are business owners, and most businesses will finance copy machines. They will finance equipment like this. They'll finance all of it because it's so easy for a business to get financing or lease equipment. But nonetheless, let's just say that this is 10% interest. The mortgage was 6%, but this is a $1,000 loan on this piece of equipment for 5 years. So now we got another $1,000 every month going out. Now we think nothing of this, but I look at this and I'm like, this is $4,300 every month, leaving our business, leaving our family to pay for the things that we need to run our business. No big deal, right? This is just normal. This is how everybody looks at it. But you see, once you learn the infinite banking concept, once you become your own banker, you look at it all different. So how would we switch this thing around? How would we look at this completely different? Well, here's what we would do. Remember I said we take our income, our savings, and our cash flow, and we put it into a bank. But let's just say we could put it somewhere else. I'll tell you where that somewhere else is in a second. And let's just say we now could also get dividends. Although the dividends are not guaranteed, every year we could get a dividend from this place. And let's just say the interest in the dividend, for all intents and purposes, was 6%. Now, it may be a little less, maybe a little more, depending on what company we decide to use, but this is just for an example. If you could earn 6% on your money, would that be better than what the bank pays you? Christy, what would you say about it?
Absolutely.
It's kind of a no-brainer, right? But what if you could earn 6% in this account? And what if it could be tax-free? Like, what if that money could sit there and earn 6% gross tax-free? That'd be pretty cool, right? Now, hold on. What if for your business, it could be protected against judgments and liens? Some businesses are risky. Some businesses have liabilities that we don't have as individuals. But nonetheless, that money could be protected from judgments and liens. So if we could just get a higher dividend crediting rate than what we get at the bank, if we could have protection on that money from judgments and liens, if that money could grow tax-free, would that be something that you folks would want to hear about for your business? Now, remember, you're still going to have a bank account. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw another account behind this one. This is your traditional bank checking account. You're still going to keep a balance in that checking account to pay for your normal business expenditures. But what we're going to do is we're going to take primarily the part of your cash flow in your business that you normally would put away into a high yield savings, a money market, somewhere where that money, you don't need it for normal business. This is kind of savings in the business, but you don't want to take it out because you don't want to have a distribution where you got to pay tax on it personally. So you just leave it in the company. It just builds up. How many of you can relate to that? In your business, you have another account that just kind of builds up and you want to earn a better rate. And that money's a rainy day money fund or whatever it is, right? So that's the money that we're going to put here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep letting this money build up. So remember, I showed 10,000 was in there. Let's just move the $10,000 over here to your regular operating account. And now, every single month, you're going to take some of your cash flow, you're going to put it into this new account. Okay, and we're going to call this new account your private banking system. That's what we're going to call it. And it doesn't matter who knows what this is. We do. This private banking system is going to take some of your income and cash flow and it's going to move it in here. And we're going to let that money build up. So over here, let's just come over here and look at where would we want to use this money. Well, over here we got Apple. Apple's got a 0% note and you're losing $300 a month. Now let's just say this note from Apple is $2,500. That's what's owed. It's a balance. So over here, we're going to save up $2,500. Now just stay with me, okay? We got a balance of $2,500 in this private banking system account that we set up that's earning us 6% hypothetical dividend crediting rate. What we're going to do is we're going to take this $2,500 from this account, but we're not going to take a withdrawal. We're going to take a loan. We're going to take that $2,500, okay? And we're going to move it over here. Hold on, let me just add this up. We had $4,300 a month going out. Remember that? $4,300 a month was leaving our bank and going to their banks. Apple's bank was getting 300 of it. The mortgage bank was getting 3,000 of it. And this financing note for this piece of equipment, we'll just call that CAT, is getting $1,000. All that was leaving. But now we're going to take the $2,500 from your private banking. We're going to then send that $2,500 over here. So $2,500 from this private banking comes over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pay off Apple. We no longer owe Apple $300 a month because we used our little private banking system to pay off Apple. But here's the unique thing. When we took this $2,500 out of our private banking system, to which I haven't told you what it is, but I think a lot of you already know, and I promise I'll come back and explain what it is, but it's important for right now to understand the process because I just showed you how a bank works. I'm trying to now show you how you can be your own bank. This $2,500 that is in that banking system didn't leave your account, but $2,500 came over here to pay off Mac, but you still have $2,500 earning interest and dividends on that money. So it's compounding uninterrupted. How is that possible? Well, in a bank, a traditional bank, and Christy knows this a lot, if you had a house, okay, you had an asset called a house, and you wanted to access the equity in your house, you'd get a home equity line of credit, or maybe a first lien HELOC, right? And then you would be able to use the equity in your house, but it would cost you interest. Okay, understand how that works? Imagine now that we do the same thing similar, but that money that's sitting in this private banking system is sitting in a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy with a mutually owned life insurance company. That's where this money's sitting. That's why it's a higher interest rate. It's not a bank at all. It's an insurance company. And the insurance company at any given time will let us use whatever money we have in cash value. We can use that money anytime, but we don't have to use our money. The insurance company literally says, hey, listen, if you've got $2,500 in your cash value, we will let you take a loan from the insurance company. In other words, the insurance company's got money in their general account. They'll let you use that money up to your cash value. So now we're going to start defining these different things. Your cash value is $2,500, and the insurance company says you can use $2,500 of our money. We're going to use your $2,500 as collateral, but we're still going to pay you interest and dividends on the full amount because your money didn't leave. You borrowed money from the insurance company. Now, the insurance company does charge interest. So let's just say this $2,500 is costing you, let's just say 5.5%. Now, depending on the insurance company you're working with, that rate's going to change. So I'm just going to kind of put an asterisk for compliance. This is going to change depending on the company. But if you were earning 6 and you could use your money or use the insurance company's money at 5.5, wouldn't that kind of be like what I showed you with the bank? Remember, the bank was paying you 4 and they were lending your money out at 7, at 8, at 9, at 12. You're kind of doing the same thing. But now your money is just earning interest. So it's working for you 24/7 while you get to use it. Now, we used it over here to pay off Apple. But you see, here's what we're going to do. We were used to paying Apple $300 a month. So because we were used to that, what we're now going to do is we're going to take that $300 a month we paid Apple and we're going to send it back over to the policy, your private banking system. You're going to make those payments back to yourself. But here's the cool part about this. Every time you make this $300 payment back to your banking system, okay, so now $300 is coming back. Remember up here, that money was leaving. Now that money is coming back. And now every month you have $300 more to use just because you stopped giving up control of it to someone else's bank. You're now the bank. The only downside to this is you had to capitalize your banking system to the tune of $2,500. You had to save $2,500. Now, this shouldn't be hard because most of you have savings in your business. Remember, you have that rainy day fund, that tax fund. You have that money sitting there, but it's not earning much for you. Here, we took the money out, we put it to work. Now, the one thing a lot of you are looking at is you're saying, why would I ever pay off an Apple note at 0% interest? I agree with you. Maybe that wasn't the one. But see, why you would do that is over time, and I'll show this to you in math when we meet and when we talk. And folks, you can book a call with us at any time, and we'll show you the math behind it. But it would, in some cases, make sense to pay this 0% off, even though it's costing you 5.5, because you're making a spread. Now, it depends on what year you're at in the policy, but that spread goes and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Plus, I didn't mention this, but the $300 a month that's coming back from Apple, the cash flow you're now taking back control of, what that's doing is it's reducing this $2,500 loan. So every month, just think of it this way. Insurance companies charging you 5.5% yearly on $2,500. But every month, you have $300 going against this because you're making that same Apple payment, but you're making it back to your bank. So at the end of the year, and Christy teaches this all the time, you are reducing the APR, which is the annual percentage yield that you're paying to the insurance company because you're buying down the balance. So in a simple interest loan, exactly what HELOCs are that we always talk about in velocity banking, in that scenario, you're paying 5.5% on a declining balance. So this balance is going down because you're just taking control of the money you were giving away. While this balance, your $2,500 that was in the account earning compounding interest, is going up. You see, so one is going up, the other is going down. The one that's going down is pushing your APR lower. So after a year, you didn't pay the insurance company 5.5%. You probably paid somewhere around 4+%. And every single year this happens, that APR goes down. So now you can see your spread just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The only reason I started with the Apple computer, and the only reason I use 0% is I want you to understand it's not so much about the rate. It's about you understanding math and how it works with this. Now let's have some more fun with this now that you understand that. You keep saving over here. You keep pushing money over here. We already paid the Apple off, the Mac, but over here, let's go to this financing note that you're paying $1,000 every single month on this piece of equipment. Let's just say you owe $50,000 on this piece of equipment. Over time, This private banking system, the specially designed whole life, you're going to save 50 grand. It's just going to be a matter of time. And plus, now that you're recapturing $300, it's going to go faster because that $300 is adding to your balance every single month. So you got 50 grand in there. We're going to rinse and repeat and do the same thing. We're going to take 50 grand out now, okay? And we're going to then take that $50,000 loan from the insurance company and we're going to pay off this financing note. Now, this financing note was 10% interest. How much is it costing us with the insurance company? 5.5. So are we not making a spread? We are. We made 4.5% on this deal, which is the 10 minus the cost of your capital, 5.5. But you still are earning 6% on the full 50,000. I want to preface that. Remember I said at the beginning, this is how your money works for you twice. Your money works for you 24/7 compounding because your money never left the account. And the insurance company never stopped paying you compounding interest on it. The only thing you got to be factoring in is the cost of capital, which I told you how to play that game. Take the money and buy the rate down. We're going to do the same thing. So now we got $300 going in, but now we don't owe $2,500 to the insurance company. We now owe $50. But now, instead of paying back the $300, we've already paid the Apple off. Now we're going to pay back $1,000. So now over here, $1,000 a month that you used to give to this financing company, CAT, is now going to come back over here and going to be recaptured into the policy. So every month you have $1,000 in your account that you could use. That $1,000 that you have is not new money. You didn't work harder for that money. You didn't even have to work for that money. You didn't have to take any risk for that money. It was money you were giving away every month to someone else's bank. You took back control of it. So now that $1,000's in your account. But your money never stopped working for you. You now recaptured $1,300 of the money that you were giving away, and you're making pretty darn good money because, hey, by all intents and purposes, 4.5% plus whatever the spread is, you're doing good. Now you just keep doing that. Over here, you got a mortgage. Let's say this mortgage is $100,000, okay? Once this account has 100 grand, you're going to take that 100 grand out. We're just doing the same thing over and over for all the things that you today have that you pay somebody else for. We're going to take back those banking functions. It's going to take time. I get it. You're going to have to capitalize the banking system. I get it. But you see, this shouldn't be foreign to any of you business owners. This shouldn't be foreign to any of you at all. You're doing this today. All of us go to work. We're all trying to save money, but we're just not doing it right. We're saving and saving and saving and saving and wondering why we never feel like we're getting ahead. It's because you're leaking. Your boat has giant holes in it. The holes in this case was Apple. Oh, no harm done. It's a 0% interest loan. There is harm done. $300 a month, harm every month. And then you had that financing note with the piece of equipment. Harm, 10%. That's $1,000 a month, leaving your family forever that now can come back. You see, we are doing the same thing you're doing now. We're just doing it with your mind focused on you becoming the bank. And all we had to do is change where the money went first. And at the end of this whole thing, you would have paid off the Apple note. You would have paid off the financing on the piece of equipment. You would have paid off the mortgage. And now that $4,300 that was leaving your family forever is no longer leaving your family and your business. That $4,300 now is coming back over here to your private banking system, building your wealth. So the beauty of this whole thing is you literally got to become your own bank. You got to do exactly what I started with in the beginning, showing how a bank makes money off you, how a bank makes 400 to 1,300% more than you do. That isn't the case here when you become your own bank. You became your bank. You're not giving up money anymore. You're taking all the money back. And it isn't new money. You didn't have to work harder for it. It's just money you were giving away, the holes in the boat, if you will. This allows you to build wealth through your own debts and expenses. So why are you not using this in your business? So earlier, I'm going to kick it back over to you, Christy. You had mentioned that you don't have a separate savings account for your business. Now, I already knew the reason why, but you want to tell them a little bit about how you run your business operations? Because you've kind of been around the block on this whole thing. You've already learned this. You're your own bank already. And I'll let you explain the rest.
Oh, well, the fact is that when you understand how this concept works, you try to run every dollar that you bring in through it. And so why would I have a savings account that I'm concerned about what that interest rate is going to be when I know I have no intentions of leaving it in a savings account? I am pushing that over into this concept, my whole life policies, so that I can be my own banker, right? It's common sense once you understand how this concept works.
Christy, another thing too that we kind of didn't tell them the whole truth on, and I intentionally did that, but we were talking about that mortgage on that commercial property that your business operates out of. And I said that the bank gave you a mortgage at 6%, but I think we both know that that's actually kind of a little bit of a white lie. You're not paying the
Yeah.
bank 6%. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, or should we not, upset them anymore?
Well, I think that anybody that watches the channel understands that this amortization schedule is set up to let the bank make sure it wins, right? And factually, that's not 6%. That's closer to 120%. So when you did your numbers from the very beginning, talking about the 7% was the example you gave when you first started the video here, you're talking about 140% nearly. So when we're comparing apples to apples, we're not talking about the 4% in your savings account and they're taking the 6% and loaning it back out. That's not factual. The idea is that if you allow that loan for your equipment there to run out, if you allow that mortgage to keep going, making those monthly payments, you are in fact going to pay so much more in interest than that 6%, and we're getting into the hundreds. That's crazy. And when you compare what you're able to do with this infinite banking concept, you're saving yourself a killing every day, every day. I work with people who are in these personal loans, who are in these mortgages, and they are paying 20 years more in most cases than they have to pay on that property, on that equipment, depending upon what kind of equipment they've got. So when I teach on this channel that you need to look at that 6%, 7%, whatever your mortgage interest rate is, as so much more than that 6 or 7%, it kind of brings into realization why the mortgage takes 30 years, why the equipment loan takes 10 years. I did an example, and I've got it on the board over here, where I did a live stream showing where the person had $65,000 in personal loans, just personal loans. And when we took the personal loans and put them into the line, that 10 years, the second mortgage, you were talking about the HELOC. Most people get a second mortgage. What is that? That's another mortgage extended out all of these years. And they're saying, oh, it's 8%. Yeah, right. Uh-huh. Okay, so the idea is when we ran the numbers on that 10-year second mortgage, and they had a 10-year personal loan as well, it was 28 months. 28 months using the payments that they're making right now. So if you can, people, if you can really get into your mind what he's saying, yeah, this is a great deal just using that 6% rate. But wow, we would all be so wealthy if we took the 480,000, like an example I had on Friday. 480,000 was the 20-year savings. What would we do with 480,000 over 20 years? Now, that's without the gain that he is currently showing in this whole life policy, the infinite banking concept. So, how much are you really making if you're really trading this debt off? Wow. I mean, you're talking, everybody could be a millionaire by the time they retire if we weren't throwing our money away in these loans. I didn't mean to take that over what you're talking about here, but it's so important for people to understand that if you can do a trade-off like he's showing here with putting your money somewhere first, then turning around and paying for your stuff, wow, everybody needs to know this. Everybody can do better in their finances with just a little bit of education.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, you kind of said something that kind of made me want to just give one final thing. Now, I know in these videos that at about this point, you know, we're down to about the 20%. You know, there's about 20% of the folks watching this. But you know what? For you 20%, I got something really interesting to show you. This is something I do in my businesses, and I think it's really interesting. And I want to show you kind of some of the numbers on how it would work. So one of the things I do is personally, on my house, I have a first lien HELOC. I learned this from Christy. I'm using it to use velocity banking and pay my house off much quicker, and it's working well. But that personal house, my HELOC, which we'll just call that, okay, that's my personal. Now, everything we just went over, we were talking about business. So a lot of times people don't make the connection that sometimes in your business, what has to happen is in order to make more, you need a capital injection. Now, that could be for marketing, could be for new equipment and all these things, but your business may not have the money. So most people are like, oh, this all sounds great, but you know, I need to take a loan for the business. But hold on. There's nothing out there, and consult with your CPA on this and your attorney, but there's nothing out there saying that you can't be the bank for your business. So here's what I do, and we do this all the time. Let's just use simple numbers of $100,000. Let's just say I got $100,000 of equity available in my first lien HELOC. And then over here in my business, so this is my business, we've tracked our KPIs, which are key policy indicators or key performance indicators. We track them, and we found out that for every dollar that we spend in marketing, we get $1.20 back. Okay, so if we spend $1 on marketing, we essentially get $1.20 back. That's pretty good numbers, right? Now, I don't want to really talk about that, but wouldn't you want to invest more money into marketing if those were your numbers? It's like a 20% return on the dollar, right? You'd want to, but if your business didn't have the money, you couldn't do it. So let's solve that problem. I got $100,000 over here that my personal residence has. I don't need that money personally because I paid off all my debt. I've used velocity banking to do that. So now I'm like, how do I make this 100 grand go to work for me again? Here's what I do. I take that 100,000 and I lend that money over to my business. Now I have an attorney draft a note from me, Chris Naugle, to my business. Now I charge my business anywhere between 6 to 7%. Now I'm just going to use 7 because that's where we're at now because interest rates have been elevated. Why do I charge 7%? Well, here's why. I've worked with my CPA, and my CPA said, how much could you borrow money from a bank, an unsecured line of credit from a bank? Easily 8% is the number. Probably more like 9% by today's standards. So if I went to a traditional bank, they would charge me 8 to 9% interest on that. Well, what if I just used 7%, okay? And I then lent this 100 grand to my business at 7% interest. Now let's just say, I don't know what the math is, but we'll keep this simple. Let's say that's $1,000 a month is what that works out to be. I put that $100,000 into my business. So now my business has that. My business owes me $100,000, but also owes me $1,000 a month. So every single month, my business has to pay me or my HELOC $1,000. Okay, so we'll just keep that money there. But you know what? I could charge anything I wanted here up to a reasonable rate. So could I charge 9%? I'm just assuming, so this is going to be a little outside the norm, but my HELOC, when I took it out, was just a smidgen under 4%. Because they had an intro rate the place that I did it. But that's probably not realistic. But these are my numbers, and I'm just giving you my story. So I want you to understand, if I charge 6 or 7, you see I'm still making a spread? This intro rate won't last forever, but it was still 4% when I did this. Took the 100 grand, put it into my business, charged my business 7%, okay? Now, I made a spread. So if we just did the math, okay, 7% is what my company is paying back to my HELOC. My HELOC is costing me 4%, okay? So 7 minus 4, that's my spread, Okay, so I'm just going to write that because I want you to start thinking as if you are the bank. You're making a spread. So that would make sense. The $1,000 every month is coming back over to my HELOC, which means every month I'm regenerating $1,000 of usable capital, but my business over here now has $100,000. And if I was making a 20% return because every dollar I spent in marketing was yielding me $1.20 in return, okay, in income, that's pretty darn good. So this is what I did, but let's just say I went one step further. And folks, you got to believe I do this. I'm a key person in my business. So instead of taking that 100 grand and putting it into my business checking account, check this out. What if I did this? What if I took that 100 grand and I put that money into one of these specially designed and engineered whole life policies that you're looking at here? Now, this isn't me. This is just a hypothetical, but I figured this is close enough. I'm 48, not 55, but this is a 55-year-old example of Speedy Gonzalez taking it out. Now, I'm a key person for my company, which means my company has an insurable interest in me. So that means my company can take out a policy on my life. Now, let's just say this is me, and let's say replace Speedy Gonzalez with Chris Naugle. I take the 100 grand from that home equity line of credit that I lent to my company. Instead of putting it into a bank account, I put it into my policy, my Keyman policy, okay, that my company pays the premium on. And let's say every year my company pays $11,000. But then once the money goes into my policy, okay, what I do is I take the money out of the policy inside the company and I use it for marketing. And then I just do exactly what you just learned. Okay, exact same thing. What would be my return now? Because it was pretty good before, right? If I just did what I showed you, I make $1.20 for every dollar in marketing. That makes all the sense in the world. Plus, I was making a spread from what the bank with the HELOC was charging me and what I was charging myself. Like I'm winning the game here, folks. But now I'm just going to add one change, and that is where that 100 grand goes first. And now I'm going to win the game even more. Two different things that now happened because I added this policy in the middle that is this policy owned, I'm the insured, my company's the owner. Here's what happens. Look at these numbers. Got $111,000 I put in the first year, of which $100,000 was a loan from me. I only have access to 91% of that. Why? Well, because I have a $1.3 million death benefit. So this is self-completing. So no matter what I've got is a death benefit on my life that if I died would go to my company to continue my company's legacy. So let's just say my daughter Vivi, when she's older, she wants to take over my company. Now I'm kind of an old dad. I'm not going to be here forever. Okay, I get to go home. Okay, someday we all get to go home. And you know what? I'm not scared of that day. But when that day comes, I want to make sure that my family's in a better place. So if my daughter wanted to take over the company, when I pass, my company gets a windfall, in this example, of $1.3 million if it were this year that I passed away. Now, I'm not trying to say I am, but that's a huge bonus for my company because I am making sure that my company survives after me. Okay? But what else I'm doing? What else am I doing? Well, I'm also leveraging that $100,000 so that it makes money twice. So here, the next year, I put $11,000 in. That $11,000 makes $11,229. But that's not what I want to show you. I want to show you something even more interesting. Let's say we go into the future 5 years. I'm putting that money into the policy. Okay, that money's being used for marketing. The company's paying the policy premiums. The company's paying me back. All those things that I showed you a second ago are all happening. But here after the 5th year, I hit this magic moment where the policy cumulatively breaks even. Meaning every dollar my company puts into this policy, the policy has more in cash value than what I put in cumulatively. The second year, I had more every year. That's cash on cash. But this is the cumulative. This is where people always like to focus, even though it's not the most important. So at that point, how much does my company have to pay for this death benefit? Well, really, nothing, right? Nelson Nash always said, how much did that death benefit cost me after that efficiency point? Nothing. Well, that's true. Look at this. I made $1,266, my company did, for funding this policy. That's because of the uninterrupted compounding interest. On top of that, my company got to make more money because it got to market with more money. It got to earn more money in normal operations, which all came back to where? To me, the owner of the company. I'm benefiting multiple ways. But look at how this goes. As we keep going, year 7, year 8, year 9, Christy, I'm sorry, I'm getting excited here. But let's just say 10 years down the line. 10 years down the line, I put all this money into the policy, and this company has $234,000 of usable money that I could have used for marketing or anything else. I made $29,657 by the 10th year on it. Now, some people are like, oh, that's not a very good return. But you know what? I didn't just make 29. I took that full 237. Every year I had money. What did I use it for? Well, if I was keeping those marketing metrics, marketing, for every dollar I put into marketing, I get $1.20 back. Heck yeah, you know where that money's going. So I made all that on top of making 29,000, on top of making sure that in the 10th year, I have a death benefit on my life. Now, although in this point, it's only 417 in the 10th year because we didn't want that term insurance on. So we dropped the term rider. Now, again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that. We could build your plan to be anything. I'm just doing this as an example. Every year that goes by, every year I operate my business, I make more money. Every year, no matter what. I don't have to work harder. I don't have to work longer. The policy just keeps generating compounding interest while my business keeps making more and more because it has usable capital to continue its operations and put money into things that normally the bank would have got that money. Sorry I went for that bonus round, but you just got to understand the numbers sometimes. And the numbers always work.
Right. And I am notorious for using my HELOC just like you showed. Because, you know, some people don't have $50,000. Some people don't have 25,000. Most don't have 1,000. So the idea for me is just to, like you said, take a loan from that HELOC and do what I need to do business-wise and everything else. All the while, my income is going back into that HELOC and paying it right off very quickly. So, you know, we can do so much more than we're even aware that we can do. It's about how are you using every single tool that you have on hand and can leverage to do so much more than you ever thought was possible. I'm just so glad you brought that up. And while you were talking about getting excited, I was running around the room because it is exciting to know that somebody like myself, single parent, making very, very low wages at one point, can really come to greater heights just being educated to know what you can do with that bank.
Well, I knew you would like that, and I know we went a little long. Sorry about that, but I just felt like that added little piece had to be said because this is how I use it. This is how you use it in business. Now, some of it goes to marketing. Some of it goes to hire new like COOs. I mean, you can use this money for anything you want, but you always want to make sure that it's something that's going to make your business more money. And that's exactly why I picked on marketing. And I know you definitely do this. We all do this. But I just thought it was a great lesson. And just kind of see how what we're doing, folks, is we started with a simple concept, simple idea, the infinite banking concept. Then we layered in velocity banking. And then we basically mixed the two together. And you know, I know some of you are thinking about this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's so complicated from a tracking standpoint. Well, you know, there was a day once, not too far long ago, where we had to, when we got in our car to go somewhere, we had to get a triptych. We had to learn how to read maps and atlases. That was kind of a skill that we had to develop. Well, this is the same skill. But you know, someone came along somewhere and said, you know what? This is way simpler. I'm going to develop technology that's going to allow people to just punch in a destination. I'm going to do all the work behind the scenes, the math and everything else to find the fastest way to get where you're going to that destination. But all we have to do today is we go to a GPS or our phone, we just punch in a destination. And what does it do? Calculates all that fancy, hard to do math on the back end. And it basically just says, this is your most economical way to get where you're going, the fastest way you can get there. That was maps. Okay, we don't even use maps anymore. Well, the infinite banking concept, I view the same way as I view maps. We are now at that point where we are transitioning away from having to learn how to use Excel for all this infinite banking stuff to now there's software called the Vault. Okay, the Vault software does everything we just showed you today. It does it all for you. All you need to do is put in your destination. What is the destination? Well, in this case, it was using money for marketing. It was using money to pay off business debts and take back control of that money. That's all you need to do. Give the Vault software your destination. The Vault software will then calculate using velocity banking and the infinite banking concept. If you want, you can do one or the other or both combined. It's the only software that exists today that can do this. And it will show you the most efficient way to do what you're trying to do, and it will show you the pure mathematics behind that. So you no longer need to learn how to do all this infinite banking stuff. You just have to know what you want out of it. And I think that's what we showed today, Christy.
Yeah, and if anybody can go back to the 80s and try to use the Atlas and MapQuest, wow. You see how simple things actually get in the future. So, you know what? You've just heard it from the best. You have heard it from the best. The way he lays this out, the way he teaches this information is so simple. But to be honest, the infinite banking concept is caught. It's not taught. So it may take you a few times to watch some videos for it to make sense. It took me years to understand the importance of what the infinite banking concept was going to do in my own personal situation. So don't be crazy upset if you're like, oh, this makes no sense to me. It may not. It may not. And you may have to keep watching videos, but it would be worth your time to sit down and focus here for a minute, okay? Because this is valuable information. And I tell you what, it's completely changed my life. And every time I sit and listen to Chris go over these scenarios, it's so much clearer even to myself. Chris, it wasn't a year ago, I guess, that you taught me why we make payments back to ourselves in these policies. Because I was like, I'm not going to touch it. You know, it's growing. But you explained that so clearly. And you're an excellent teacher. So I appreciate you so much coming on the channel today, going over this with us again. I know that we have business owners out there that have money just sitting in savings, doing absolutely nothing for them, and you have showed them a new way. So I thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.